that's going to be Julius Randle. We touched on it a little bit earlier about him not necessarily being happy with the fan base, saying some disrespectful things, telling us to shut the F up. And as you can see, I've gotten Julius Randle's stats from over the last 3 games when he came back from COVID. So far in that stint, he's averaging 21.7 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game, but yet he's averaging 3 turnovers per game as well. He's shooting 44%, and something that's glaring is the 3-point shot, only shooting 22% in those 3 games, and that's been a story throughout this season. The 3-point shot really has not been there for him this season. It's helped make the Knicks a lot easier to guard. The fact that he's not able to hit the three, not able to be able to operate in the mid-range like we saw he was able to do last season. So Foxy, I ask you, what should the Knicks do? Should we continue to try and find pieces to bring in and play with Julius Randle? Or is it time for us to make the decision and move on from Julius Randle, especially seeing how he's starting to get into it with the fan base?
I would move on. Obviously, you want value for value, and the reality is, whomever we're going to get is going to have some, whether skeletons in their closet or some issues, because it's going to be somebody that overpaid for somebody and that's not producing at a level. So, there's certain names that they're in the ballpark of his salary, the Buddy Hields and other stuff. I just think that he brings. His energy is so negative that, you say, what are you doing, man? The guy's 21, you just 21, 12, 4. Who would give up that type of player? You only give up that type of player when he has negative energy and impacts the rest of the team. And I use the term all the time that he's a rhythm vampire, man. He sucks out the life on this team. And, you heard, the team is better, shout out to Tommy Beer and stuff like that, where the team is better when he's off the court. They're better offensively and they're better defensively. And you're like, you're kidding. And it's like, no, unfortunately, I wish I didn't have that. But, so just in the last, I'll say the last 7 games, the Knicks averaged 99.4 points per 100 possessions with Julius on the court, 124 points per 100 possessions with him on the bench. With Julius on the court, this is for the season, they're allowing 111 points per 100 possessions, and with him off the court, we're averaging 99 points. So the numbers are saying that, yeah, he has great stats, but we're a better team we play better team ball when he's not on the court. So from a front office standpoint, and from them having a whole analytics department and stuff, the stats only go so far. We've seen that with guys like Russell Westbrook that we'll touch on a little later, but there's players in this league that have great stats, but they're detrimental to the team. So getting back to your thing, I would definitely think about, if I was the front office, about if we're going to have a future and a team harmony. I just don't think Julius is the man.
See, the thing though, when it comes to trading Julius Randle, if we do decide to move on from Julius, and that means this front office would be admitting that they don't know what they're doing. This would be like the Giants all over again. And Dave Gettleman, I didn't sign him just to trade him, to trade him a year later. So that's the only thing I see when it comes to Julius Randle and potentially moving on from him. You just invested a boatload of money in him. You said, all right, we want you to continue to build a future here. And then now to move on from him, it's going to be hard, I would say, just because you already went public with this relationship, saying that he was our guy. But I mean, I can't argue against you when it comes to the team benefiting from a move of Julius Randle, trading him to another team, because we've seen that Julius Randle I think right now everything is mental. I think the fans are actually in his head. Maybe not just be Knicks fans, but I just think fans in general. The big story was Julius Randle did not play well when fans were allowed back into the arena, and the outlash, not the outlash, but the outburst we saw from him, to me, it just adds credence to that point, because clearly he's paying attention to what we have to say when we're out there watching him play. The guy was foaming at the mouth. That's not normal. So this guy clearly has something going on in his head when it comes to the fan base, and it's going to be a rocky relationship. It's the same thing with Tibbs, because the fan base we looked at this team and we had a different opinion of it than the front office. The front office looked at this team and said, okay, we need to win now, coach, and got Tibbs. I think the majority of the fan base felt we should go after a coach that's better developing players and move forward that way. The fan base felt we should have moved on from Julius Randle and given Obi the opportunity to flourish and see what we have in him. But the front office, they felt like giving Julius Randle additional years on his contract and pretty much invested in him as the star of this team. So there's always going to be some friction between the fan base and Julius Randle and Thibodeau. But the way Julius Randle has responded to that friction, I think really complicates things, because I don't know if the front office is ready to move on from a Julius Randle, but he might push their issue if he continues to act like this towards the fan base. This is a losing battle.
I love the New York fans, and I think you just have to be real with them. I worked for one of the biggest technology companies in the world for like a little over 22 years. And I learned a lot from them, where they'd buy a company for over $100 million. And then a year later they'd sell it for 40 million. And you're like, the stockholders and everything. And they went, I'm sorry, this is a risk business. There's no guarantees. You make a thing and then you keep making your assessments. We wanted to cut it. We just said, you know what? In good faith, we bought it. And after a year, we realized it wasn't right for our portfolio. So we're cutting losses early rather than perpetuate the mistake, keep perpetuating. And I think I'm going to use, and I learned a lot from my company, seeing that you got to cut your losses early. You do your homework. And I think it's the same thing with the front office, with the fans. All they have to do is, when we thought about it, we thought that Julius was going to be the guy, but when we're taking a step back a year or so later and we look at where we want to go with this team, we made a mistake. And I think the fans would be a lot cooler with them being upfront and saying, yo, you know what? It's a hard thing doing what we do, assessing a player, what their upside is. Are they at their ceiling, or are they past their ceiling, or whatever? And sometimes, we don't get it right. But we'd like to, the minute we realize we don't get it right, let's move on rather than say, let's give it a few more years. Well, those few more years, you're hurting the development of kids. You're hurting RJ. You're hurting the Knicks. You're hurting the fans. So those are the type of things. It's like, just be real. But I absolutely think, and like you were saying, after he had the great year last year, all they needed to do is say, you know what? The 5 years prior to that great year, he shot 30 odd percent from three and all these other things. He's never really been part of a winning team. Let's see him do it for another year, 2 years in a row. Let's see if that 1 year was not an anomaly. And you know what? If he walks, he walks. It's a lot easier. If he's a wing or a point guard, we'll tie him up. Even, we got to tie him up. But he's a power forward. And I don't mean anything. We could replace that and have other guys take on certain elements of his playmaking and stuff. We can live without him. But let him show 2 years in a row. He did the 1 year, and you said it so epically that his year last year set back this organization for multiple years, if not 5 years, because of what we have to go through to get rid of him. So I definitely think the front office got to cut their losses and say, you know what, that apology was bullshit. He's going to continue every time something goes bad. You're going to see him complaining to the refs, complaining to his players, saying F you to the press, and just having a bad attitude. So what are you going to wait for him to really blow up to get rid of him and then even get less for his money? Come on, man. Do something. Doing nothing is worse than doing something.
You say the front office just has to keep it real with Knicks fans. I think they should be more concerned about Dolan. We've already seen Dolan have a short leash with the Rangers front office. They had a few years where they even made the playoffs, missed it the following year, and he got rid of everybody. So I don't know if Leon Rose and them can go and say, hey, we made a mistake. Let's give us another chance here. So,
but it goes beyond. It goes beyond Randle, though. When your head coach that's supposed to be an old taskmaster has, you can count on two hands now how many times after a game he said we didn't have the energy, then that's on you, Tibbs, and that's on the front office. We should not, especially when we play in our house at Madison Square Garden, you're going to let somebody come into our house and we're not going to have energy and you're going to have them laughing in our face? Yo, then you reconstructed this roster all wrong, man. We got the wrong players. You got to get dogs on this team because your team should reflect the identity and the attitude of the city. Whether you're Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Manhattan, there's a certain attitude in New York, man. I love our attitude. It's the best city in the world. Don't mess with me. I'm a gentleman, but you mess with me, I'll bite your nose off. And that's what New Yorkers are like. It's like, we're cool, but don't mess with us. And to have players that are just acting, just going through the motions, man, you didn't put together a New York Knicks basketball team that reflects the city of New York. These are a lot of guys, they're soft, and New York is not a soft city, man.
So Foxy, I put a poll in the chat, ask SV Nation what the Knicks should do. Should we try to continue building around Julius Randle, or should we go ahead and trade him? And I'm going to end the poll. Says trade at 68%. So it looks like, I won't say the fan base, but it looks like a lot of SV Nation feel like Julius Randle's time has come with the New York Knicks, and it's time for us to look for greener pastures elsewhere.
Yeah, but the problem is, I think you touched on it, is that we don't have basketball people. We have PR people. So their decisions.
You touched on it, Foxy.
Well, I'm trying to spread the wealth. but it's the truth. They're PR people. So the stuff they're doing, it's always like that. We didn't sign Julius Randle in the first place because we thought he was great. We signed them because we missed out on the KD and Kyrie sweepstakes. So we had a safe face and we signed them. So we did that, and the same thing with Kemba. We couldn't get Lonzo. We didn't get a grid free agent. So, let's get the back page. We signed Kemba. We're bringing back Kemba. Everything to them is that type of thing. But it's all smoke and mirrors, man. And once that shit dies down, you're like, wow, we didn't get what I thought we were going to get, man. And we sure didn't get what we thought we were going to get with Julius.
So, seeing that the fan base wants to move on from Julius Randle. Well, I won't say the fan base. Since the chat wants to move on from Julius Randle, what do you think we could potentially get for him? Would we be able to put him in a deal for a better player like a Dame Lillard or say Ben Simmons?
I'd definitely go for Ben before I go Dame. I don't want any player on the other side of 30 that's on maybe touching on the other side of their prime. I'd rather get draft picks or and go like that. The funny thing is, I read an article today. I don't know SV Nation if you saw it, but Real GM had an article that the Knicks have not called the 76ers about a Simmons trade, but they have had internal discussions about it. So I thought that out of, if you can trade with a piece here, Randle and a piece to get Simmons, like I said, you're going to get some issues whomever you trade him for. And Ben, you're gonna, he has issues, but he's an elite, and I mean elite defensive player. When you look at him, his teams have won. He was, one Kawhi shot that went in from making the finals a couple of years ago, and yeah, so he has all those things. You put shooters around them. We can go away for some of his issues. De'Aaron Fox plays no defense. Look what happened when he went out. Halliburton showed why we should have picked him, from points, from steals, from assists. So, he has lightning speed, and it's something this team desperately needs. But he has a humongous contract. What's it going to take? If we could ship Randle and a little thing for Fox, then I have no issue. But I don't want to give up several first-round picks for Fox plus Randle. The same thing with Spider. If you look at Spider, he's really a shooting guard. He's not a point guard. And so if we get him, what are we going to do with RJ? I don't like RJ at the 3. RJ, I think, is best at the 2 when he can bully small guards. He's 6'6", but once he goes against, 6'8" wings, he's not the same player, RJ. So out of the people that you have are Lillard, Simmons, Fox, and Mitchell. Simmons is the one I think that probably salary wise, etc., that is probably the most attractive. What are your thoughts?
Me, I'd prefer Mitchell. I know he's not a point guard, but he's a hometown kid. He's competitive. It'll reunite him with Johnny Bryant. A lot of fans expect Johnny Bryant to be elevated to head coach once Tom Thibodeau moves on in his career. So I like Mitchell. I think he's a player that can fit in with players better than we have with Julius Randle. He can shoot the three, he can score, and he can play make somewhat. He's not a pure point guard, but in that, with this modern NBA point guard build, he can fulfill that role or step into that role. So me, I personally, I think it would be Mitchell. I'm not a big fan on Fox either. I don't think he plays good enough defense. I know some people think if a coach like Tom Thibodeau could help him with his game defensively, but I just don't see it happening. Lillard, I side with you with Lillard as well. I think Lillard is too old for us to mortgage our future to try and bring him in. If we are gonna target someone, it should be one of those three players that actually fit with this roster's trajectory, especially if we're going to put a piece like Julius Randle in to kind of save as much assets as possible. And Ben, I think Ben's another head case, no disrespect to him, but I don't know if he'll be able to survive in New York City. If Julius Randle's already having these issues, and I thought Julius was pretty headstrong, so for him to struggle the way he's been struggling, to bring in someone like a Ben Simmons, you'd have to have someone else to kind of to put in front of him to take the bullets or take those arrows and take a lot of the slack from him. Because even in Philly, he had Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is the one that's supposed to be taking the burden of the blame for the losses. He's that true leader. And still, Ben Simmons couldn't withstand some of the blowback from that playoff series. So me personally, I'd probably go Donovan Mitchell, like him as a baller. I know he's not the answer at point guard, but I think when you look at this team and our need for perimeter players that are dynamic, I don't think we can kind of pick and choose. If Donovan Mitchell is available and Julius Randle can be used as trade bait, I'm making the trade.
I'm down with you, because whether it's RJ and a few of the others, we've made the comment that we want a player that can't be stopped. If you put a Mikal Bridges or certain defenders on RJ could get shut down, at least at this stage of his career. Oh, I would look so pretty.
I don't know
myself.
what it is. Every time we talk about Randle, it's like someone hacks in and kicks me out. I don't know what's going on. We did it with the pregame with George. I got kicked out. Now we're talking about trading Randle. I get kicked out again. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I was like saying, God, that's a nice close-up, man. That's pretty.
Foxy's on there having fun. But thank you for holding it down in my short absence.
Yeah, no worries. So, but I think your point about Mitchell, I love having a guy that when you need a bucket, he can't get shut down. Nobody, I always go back to a couple years ago, him and Jamal Murray, man, going basket for basket, and there was not a thing you can do. So I love having a guy on the team that is like, you can't shut me down, because the guys on the Knicks, unfortunately, everyone we have on the Knicks can get shut down. They're good players. Like you said, Julius is a good player, but he could get shut down. RJ definitely could get shut down. So just listen to Clyde. Just take away his left hand. Take away him going to left, and he's not the same player. Can't do that with Spider, man. So I'm with you. I definitely go. It's just, again, it's all about value. If Spider's Randle and 2 draft choices, that's really expensive, man. One number one I can go for.
I don't think that's that expensive, though. Think about it. We have 2 first-round draft picks this year. I mean, with Spider on this team, you would think we would still get a play-in. So you're talking about mid-lottery. I mean, not mid-lottery. You're talking about a mid-round draft pick. You have Charlotte. They're probably going to be in the play-in as well. So you're talking about another mid-round pick. If those 2 picks are all it would take in a week of draft to package with Julius Randle and get a player like Donovan Mitchell, I would definitely make the deal if it takes.
Rest your case, counselor. You won. Now that you put it that way, you're right. You're right. If it's 2 middle round picks, and we talked about middle round equals role player, if we can get an elite player for the next 5 to 7 years playing at that superstar type of level, on the brink of superstardom, and like we said, can't stop him, go for it, man. But we have to get rid of Randle one way or the other, because I think it's just going to keep coming to the surface